Permaculture. It's essentially a buzzword these days, and there is a good reason for that. And if you're thinking about becoming permaculture certified or doing your design certificate, then this video is for you because I'll help you decide if it's the right fit and also why I decided to get permaculture certified. So if you're not familiar with permaculture, it's a simple concept that has so many things built into it, and it stands for permanent agriculture or permanent culture, and the term was coined by Bill Mollison, who also worked on a book with his partner, David Holmgren, and together they worked on the defining principles and concepts of permaculture. But the idea of permaculture is really to observe nature and to mimic what works in nature, and using those ideas and observations, we can essentially design a system on a farm, a homestead, a small scale, urban center, to really take the best and make it all work together so that hopefully humans are part of the system and helping it grow and do well, but we are not the main people driving all of the things. It is all about the ecosystem, interactions between all of the different elements, from plants, animals, insects, soil, water, air, and all of that good stuff. So some of my favorite things about permaculture are truly the community of permaculturists out there. And I think that is a good reason to consider becoming permaculture certified, because it's great to learn about permaculture, to watch permaculture videos or read books, but it's even better if you can talk to other people who are doing similar things, whether it's in your area or even globally. So that is one good reason to consider researching or joining some sort of permaculture certification program. So let's talk about the different types of permaculture programs there are and some of the pros and cons of all the different options that are out there. So first of all, there are local permaculture systems and programs that you can join, which is an amazing thing because learning from local people is going to give you the best for your location. So when I was living in Texas, I almost joined a Permaculture Design Certificate program that was happening locally, and it was about an hour away from me, and it was one weekend per month for, I think it was about 10 or 12 months. And it was a great program, but I decided not to join just because I had a young child, and taking care of the baby and running a business, it was just too much for me to manage being away for that much time every weekend like that for so many weekends. So I decided not to do the local option, and I decided to do an online option later down the line after we moved to our farm here in Ontario, Canada. And for me, that ended up being the best option because I was able to do it at night when the kids were sleeping and kind of fit it in with my schedule. And I ended up learning so much and connecting with all these other amazing permaculturists. And the way that this program was run, I was able to also connect with a local permaculturist online. I super recommend finding out what is gonna work best for you. So the benefits of doing it in person is that you get to meet other people also locally, and you can help each other out as you're implementing your projects and planting trees together and all that good stuff. So it's definitely worth finding a local community if you can. Now, if you're going the online route, I will put some links below of some different programs that I've looked at and that I think are great. And there are so many. So if you find a different one and you think that one is great, then just go for it. I think there are so many great options for learning permaculture online. And by the way, I don't get any kickbacks or anything from any of these recommendations. They're just sites and places that I think are really cool. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, if you did an online certification or even an in-person one, what's the difference between that and just reading some books and some blogs and watching some videos on YouTube about permaculture? Well, what I've found is that I am a huge nerd, as you can tell by the name of my channel, Waykeeper Farm and Nerdery. And that means that I love learning. So I love reading books, I love watching videos, but what I felt was missing for me personally was the more structured approach to permaculture. And yes, there are some incredible permaculture books that, basically inspire the entire permaculture concept, but I also found that doing it in a way that's very digestible and that was very structured was more helpful for me. So I always felt when I was learning about permaculture online, kind of in different bits and pieces, that I was missing something. So I didn't have that big picture view. And I think that is one of the great things about permaculture is the big picture view, is the zooming out and taking a look at at a whole project and a whole system and a whole ecosystem. And I think when you're able to do that, once you've taken a permaculture design certificate, that can really help you to make better decisions and be confident in the decisions that you're making. Another reason I decided to do a permaculture design certificate is that I considered hiring someone locally to help us design our farm. And it made sense to me to hire someone who had experience doing these things and kind of get their understanding and, their background and apply it to our new farm. But I also realized that I would always be second guessing myself if I didn't also have my own foundation, my own understanding of all these concepts. So the other big thing about permaculture is that it is about observing the land that you live on and your surroundings. And if you're hiring someone in, which is amazing, and I definitely still recommend doing that. I didn't end up hiring anyone, but I feel like there is a benefit to being the person on the land. So just to give you a super concrete example, so when we had someone who was permaculture certified come and take a look at our area with us, basically, he was like, okay, so prevailing winds are going to be northwest because that is generally the case in our area. But because of where our farm is located, we're really close to the lake in Lake Erie. And we realized that the wind in our area generally comes from the southwest. And so it's kind of the opposite of what it would have been on pretty much any other piece of land that's further from the lake. And I think those are the kinds of things that are super beneficial to understand through permaculture design and training so that you can make these decisions based on your observations in your specific circumstances. Another reason I love doing my permaculture design certificate online after we had moved to this farm is that we could actually use our farm as our project. So the way that my certificate worked, we had to design a system and essentially, we had to do all the different steps from mapping out the area to adding all the different systems that you see over time in the next 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years, and just really thinking through my plans for the farm. That really solidified so much. And also it's definitely not set in stone. So that's the benefit, is that you are supposed to learn and update and change plans as you figure out what's working and what's not working, what you enjoy and what is thriving or what needs more help. So those are other great benefits, is once you know what land you're going to be farming or homesteading or doing permaculture on, it's a lot easier to apply the principles once you're there. And now that's not to say that you should not do a design certificate if you are not in your forever home or forever land, because I think there's so many benefits to applying permaculture wherever you are. So even though I didn't take my design certificate back in Texas, we were doing so much permaculture stuff on our small suburban land. And we planted so many trees and we tried all kinds of things from interplanting and doing nitrogen fixation and getting more wildlife there. We had so many birds, we had bunnies, we had so many things because of the ecosystem that we nurtured there. And I think that is really what helped us decide to go in this direction and actually pursue a farm. So I don't think you have to be in your forever land to learn more about permaculture and to get certified, but I think that is helpful if you are at that place, because it'll be super fresh and you're able to actually apply what you're learning on a specific project. Now, some other benefits of getting certified are that you can then teach permaculture. So that's a really cool thing too, is that the whole concept of permaculture is that it's not something we want to keep hidden in an ivory tower. We want to spread the word. We want more and more people to be doing great things for the planet, for people, for animals and plants and water and all the great things. So it's important for us to be able to spread that message positively too. Now, there are some downsides to the permaculture side of things too. So there's definitely a permaculture honeymoon where we think that permaculture is the solution to all of the world's problems, and maybe we get a little too gung-ho. We might scare our friends and family off by talking about permaculture a little bit too much. But I do think that overall it's definitely worth going through that honeymoon phase and being a little too gung-ho for a while about permaculture, and then also recognizing that there are a lot of things in permaculture that come from indigenous knowledge and that might may or may not always be acknowledged in the community too. So I think that's important, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart, is realizing, you know, a lot of times we are farming on land that does not actually belong to us or to our ancestors, right? So that is something that is important to acknowledge, and also important to realize that the ideas for some of the things in permaculture came from Indigenous communities and Indigenous knowledge, and just really being able to use that to help and really, you know, support the cause of Indigenous peoples, especially because they are the ones who are bearing the brunt of a lot of issues through climate change as well. So I think it's really, really important to acknowledge that, and for us as a permaculture community to come together and support the Indigenous peoples all over the world who are really the leaders when it comes to all the things that we call permaculture, because they have been doing it for generations and eons. So those are some of the things that come to mind for me around permaculture design and getting certified. And I think a lot of people could benefit from being certified. If you don't quite have the funds to do it, then I say, you know, go ahead and watch all the videos, read all the books, and do everything you can. You know, there are so many places you could maybe even volunteer with permaculture groups locally to, you know, put in earthworks and put in trees and all kinds of things like that. So there are so many options to get involved in permaculture. And also, it is not the be all end all. So, you know, if you just want to have a small garden, or if you still want to, you know, raise just a couple of chickens, it's totally cool to do it that way too. And just keep learning and experimenting and sharing what it is that you love doing. So those are my takes. I'm Natalie Lucier, and if you enjoy all of these things, regenerative agriculture and things like sheep and chickens and trees and silvopasture, definitely make sure to subscribe here on YouTube, and also make sure to watch my next videos all about planting trees from seed.